Hello and welcome to Web3 TV. I'm Lisa Amnagard, and today I'm reporting live from the AI Everything Global Summit held here in Abu Dhabi. Joining me right now is Stephen, representing the Government of Canada, so thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Lisa. Glad to be here.
And you're one of the speakers here today, so tell us a little bit about what you were talking about and what kind of messages you wanted to put forward.
So we're on a panel here today with officials from Estonia and from the EU talking about the new large language models coming out and whether or not they're enabling governments to be more competitive, to move quicker in terms of adopting artificial intelligence.
And how's the stance from Canada's side? What's the challenges?
Canada's been a leader in public sector AI for a number of years now. We've had an approach towards data going back to the mid-2010s, and we've been, in particular, on the cutting edge of regulating in a open and enabling way what goes on with automation inside our decision-making systems. So, for example, if you're applying for immigration and whatnot, how we actually use automation to vet through applications, to raise issues, and then to make sure there's a human in the loop who can actually come and ask those questions, get clarification.
Yeah, because still today, when it comes to AI, it's still kind of in its beginning phases in a way. LLMs, they do hallucinate, and when it comes to implementing AI in a government setting, how do you kind of approach that?
So I think large language models and generative AI are in a particular situation right now. I think it's still very early days. We are seeing more and more sophistication of those models. But from a government perspective, we still have lots of questions, and we've got to make sure that the right safeguards are in place when we're using them for public sector purposes. Our first rollout of a large language model in Canada was actually our agriculture department on a program for farmers, which is fairly straightforward in the sense that we have information on programs from across the country. But it was just allowing farmers and people in the agricultural sector to be able to query that information with a natural language, like being able to ask a question like you and I are asking each other questions and get answers back that made sense. So that's something you can do fairly easily with a large language model, and it's a great innovation and really helps people move forward with questions they've got. The issue in terms of getting into trusting LLMs to do more sophisticated things or things where they're actually taking decisions, I think we've still got a lot of work in that space. More traditional artificial intelligence or deep learning, machine learning issues are what we would look at for that kind of automation.
And when it comes to just governments in general, I mean, you can speak in governments in general, there's been kind of a twofold approach when it comes to AI. The EU has had this kind of hard approach with the EU Act, but the UAE and US, for example, has sort of more laissez-faire approach where they just want to see what happens before regulating it. How does Canada see this space?
So in the digital space generally, where we're trying to get to is a model where we come out very quickly with guidance. Here's the kinds of things we would like to see being put in place: voluntary codes of conduct for the private sector, guidance for government departments and agencies, questions you should be asking yourself before you go down a road with artificial intelligence. A colleague of mine calls it a call before you dig program, just to make sure you know where the issues might be and where the problems can arise. And then we update that on a regular basis so that we're sure that we're staying current. And it's only once we've learned enough that we start to move into a regulatory space. I think you have to be careful to not move too quickly into regulations and laws because they're hard to change. So I think there is a middle ground between, I certainly think governments need to regulate and need to put some guardrails in place for the safety of their citizens, but I think you can do that in a way that's nimble and flexible and enables private sector and other innovators to continue to come up with new ideas that we can use.
Yeah, because you want to innovate and not stymie innovation.
Exactly. So I just think on the government side, it's a balance between being responsible and taking care of your people, while at the same time making sure that innovation can happen.
And in the last week, we've had a lot of turmoil when it comes to AI. We once thought that it was a US-driven story, but now it seems that it's kind of opened the floodgates for Asia and China and other markets. But when it comes to DeepSeek, for example, in China, there's been a lot of discrepancy around its data collection.
Yeah.
How's Canada seeing that?
I'm super impressed with what DeepSeek has been able to accomplish. I'm impressed with the amount of how open they've been around, like open source they've been in terms of displaying their model and showing what the innovations have been that they've put in place. It's very helpful to see, and I think that they've also been very transparent in terms of what they plan to do with the data, how they're managing it. Honestly, their privacy statement on the Apple App Store is one of the most straightforward I've ever read. Having said that, what they're doing with the data and what they're telling us they're doing with the data are a problem in terms of how they're handling it, how long they're keeping it. Well, they've basically said they'll keep whatever they want for however long they want, and they're going to store it however they want. So that's, from a privacy and security standpoint, that is a problem for Canada and for many other governments. But I really do admire the transparency and how forthright they've been with it. I think there's a lot we can learn, and that others can learn as well. It was impressive.
Yeah, definitely. It's opened up a lot of new questions around AI. But in terms of Canada and the UA and collaborating, what makes the UAE a great place for Canada to do business with?
The UAE's really impressive in terms of how they are using their resources and their wealth to create an ecosystem that enables people to come from all over, to meet each other, to share ideas, and to just sort of get your creative juices flowing. It's always a pleasure to come here and to see what's happening and to learn from others. So I'm really appreciative for that kind of an environment being created here in the Emirates.
Well, Stephen, I must say thank you so much for speaking with me, and I hope you enjoy your time here in the UAE. And thank you.
All right, it's a pleasure, Lisa. Thank you very much.
I'll be bringing you more interviews, so make sure to stay tuned. My name is Lisa Amnegard, and you're watching Web3 TV.